evening. Welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. In a plot twist, Senator Bato de la Rosa says he will lead a parallel investigation at the Senate into the Duterte administration's drug war, the very same drug war he used to lead.
Whether that happens or not, the Marcos administration is backing the PNP's plan to reinvestigate high-profile killings linked to the drug war, including that of 20 public officials.
And the lower house makes good on its threat and officially slashes 1.3 billion pesos off the proposed budget of the Office of the Vice President for next year.
Call it a strange twist in the still unraveling saga of the drug war.
Senator Bato de la Rosa, police chief to former President Duterte from Davao to Malacanang, now wants his own investigation to run parallel to what the House Quad Committee has been doing.
Senator de la Rosa plans to conduct hearings next month, and he says he is confident that they can get former President Duterte to show up. Man Los Baños has tonight's big story.
The investigation into the Duterte drug war is expanding at the legislative level. If the House has the Quad Committee inquiry, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa also wants a piece of the action. He is now making a push for a separate probe at the Senate into the war on drugs. Yes, the war nicknamed Oplan Tokhang that he himself led at one point. In short, the very personalities he will be investigating are two of his closest allies. His former boss, President Rodrigo Duterte, and his friend, former Special Assistant to the President, now colleague at the Senate, Senator Bongo. De la Rosa says the inquiry by Public Order and Dangerous Drugs Committee is all about quote-unquote checks and balances.
Hindi naman actually kukontrahin, no? Hindi naman kailangan kukontrahin. Kundi pagkakaroon lang tayo ng checks and balances dahil may nakikita man din siguro si Senator Bongo na mga portion ng investigation doon na talagang mga false accusations during the hearing. Hindi yung kung ano man yung mga issues na binato doon laban kay Senator Bongo, laban sa akin o sino pang ibang inaakusahan doon na ayaw mag-attend doon, pwede siya mag-attend dito sa Senate hearing, dito sa committee hearings ng gagawin sa Senado. Then pwede sila magpalabas ang kanilang mga saloobin. So to give fairness.
He says he hasn't told Duterte of the plan, but that they will also invite former cabinet members to become resource persons. So how confident is De La Rosa he can make the former president appear before the Senate?
Malaking posibilidad na mag-attend siya kung kami mag-imbita kasi mas mukhang mas komportable siya dito sa Senado kaysa lower house.
Senator Go himself has said he is willing to file a resolution to jumpstart a parallel Senate investigation on the conduct of the Duterte administration's war on drugs. The objective, he says, is to identify possible legislation that will address a drug menace, which could involve, among others, strengthening of law enforcement agencies and the institutionalization of anti-drug abuse councils. Go promises that the Senate's drug war probe will be fair and will make accountable personalities guilty of abuses during the campaign. For International Criminal Court Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti, this is the height of irony.
Lokohan ba ito? Kung gusto niyong lokohan na lang, marami kami paraan para makipaglokohan.
And while House Quad Committee Chair Benny Abante welcomes De La Rosa and Go's inquiry, he doubts if the senators will be impartial.
Well, the thing is, he became the Director General of the Philippine National Police during the time of the former president. But just imagine, he was only a Brigadier General all of a sudden. Nagdagdagan siya ng star, no? Naging Major General siya and naging Director General. So I would think that he would be more biased than actually balanced in that hearing.
Senator Bato is looking to start his drug war hearings before November, right before the upper chamber resumes its session. Reporting for News 5, Man Los Baños, we are One News.
The other thing the House Committee has begun looking into is whether former President Duterte used his intelligence funds for the alleged reward money. At a House hearing on Friday, former PCSO General Manager Regina Lay said the cash reward paid by the Duterte administration for killings ranged from 20,000 pesos up to 1 million pesos. They also allegedly paid for expenses in the conduct of operations. Separately, Quad Committee co-chair Congressman Dan Fernandez has said they've come across information showing that a huge amount of Duterte's intel funds back then was used up within months. But his co-chair, Congressman Barbers, says they are also getting information that the reward money, if proven true, may have come from Lotto revenues.
Marami kasing mga anggulo, no? Una, sinasabi, maaaring nanggaling daw ito sa confidential or intelligence fund ng ating Office of the President. Marami naman nagsasabi, ito ay galing daw sa PCSO, no? Yung STL or yung ano ba, Lotto? Lotto or STL, no? So, ito yung tinitingnan namin, kasama ito sa aming investigation. Kasi, kapag sinabi mong budgeted confidential intelligence funds, merong talagang purpose yan. Hindi yan pwede pang reward sa pagpatay. May mga nagpaparating ng mga info. Again, we will have to validate this kasi nga, ayaw namin basta-basta lang tumanggap ng kahit sinong witness. Mamaya, magamit kami at sabihin, pinilit namin.
Human rights lawyers are now pushing the Quad Committee to submit Garma's testimony to the International Criminal Court, which is reported to be investigating the drug war too. Barber says they're not going to do that, but pointed out that all the information and live stream of the hearings are accessible online anyway.
Since we are not members of the ICC, and the President has made a clear statement as to his position dyan sa ICC, I will support that position. Hindi ho kami magbibigay ng dokumento o ng transcript na ginawa ng Quadcom in relation to the extrajudicial killings para magamit ng ICC because, again, we're not members of the ICC. And following the statement of the President, we will stick to that. Ngayon, if they want to have access on records or access to information about the investigation, the ICC can go to the all social media platforms. It's all recorded. It's a public record. So they can access that anytime. And we will not stop them from doing that.
Malacanang supports the plan to reopen the investigation into high-profile killings during the Duterte administration's war on drugs. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin confirmed this by saying, and I quote, "The reopening of the investigations into the high-profile killings related to the war on drugs is an indication that the Marcos administration places the highest importance on the fair dispensation of justice and on the universal observance of the rule of law in the country." It was the PNP who first broached the idea, with spokesperson Brigadier General Jean Fajardo saying yesterday that they plan to reopen unsolved criminal cases in light of Regina Llay's testimony. As part of that, the police will be looking into the killing of at least 20 public officials who were allegedly killed in relation to the war on drugs. Back in 2020, the Department of Justice already began such a review, and it found that in half of the cases it looked into, police had failed to follow protocol. In 2022, only 4 of the 52 cases reviewed led to the filing of criminal complaints. This time around, Justice Undersecretary Raul Vasquez told reporters that the DOJ will start a preliminary investigation and case buildup once the House of Representatives submits its committee report.
Let's unpack some of these issues a bit. We have with us tonight Department of Justice spokesman, Assistant Secretary Miko Clavano. Asa Clavano, good evening. Welcome back to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Gretchen, Regina, Shawn. Good evening to everyone else watching.
Let's take off from that last piece of news. ES Bersamin saying that the Malacanang will support the reinvestigation into the high-profile killings related to the war on drugs, that the PNP will look into reopening cases, especially that of 20 public officials who were allegedly killed in the course of that drug war. What is the DOJ's role in all of this?
Well, because of the case build-up rule that we now currently have, it's one of the reforms that our administration had put into play. The police would be working side by side with the prosecutors in reopening the cases. So If the PNP decides to reopen cases, there will be coordination and collaboration with prosecutors to help gather evidence. The purpose of this case build-up rule is so that the police officers and law enforcement agents in general are equipped with more legal know-how to be able to sift through evidence to see which can be used, which are admissible in court, so that once the case is finally filed in court, there's an airtight and strong quality case that will be filed. So that would probably be the role of the DOJ, but we are awaiting the endorsement from the PNP.
The case buildup you're talking about is the one that you said that you will start once the House of Representatives submits its committee report. Is that the same, or is it a different case buildup?
Well, it'd be different because I believe the Undersecretary Vasquez mentioned that the cases to be referred by the Quad Committee are those relating to the testimonies of former Colonel Garma, which relates to EJ case in general and the reward system. No? So I believe that it targets a completely different set of individuals. With these cases, the cold cases and the other extrajudicial killings that are going to be reopened are more specific. So I would think that they're different.
All right. I wanted to ask in relation to all of this, because the headline the other day, Asek Lavano, was that the DOJ will wait for the committee report to be submitted. I think that's what you were saying about the referral of cases. A lot of people have been wondering, why not just conduct a motu proprio investigation instead of waiting for the committee report?
Well, that was a conversation that was had in the DOJ, and it was decided that we would give way to a co-equal branch of government to conduct their investigation first. They seem to be getting into, well, a lot of the issues. They seem to be hitting it quite squarely. And we believe to be able to see the bigger picture, to simply wait, no? Because, well, for another reason why we wanted to wait is we might be wasting resources if we were to do a parallel investigation. A lot of the resource persons are still showing up at the Quadcom, no? So to ask them to execute affidavits and to conduct interviews on the same people would be quite redundant. And so we decided to respect the legislative process of the Quadcom to get to the bottom of a lot of these issues first.
Asek, I was listening to Attorney Cristina Conti a while ago on Storycon, and she was saying that what we're investigating here is not just individual cases of EJ case, but also the systemic implementation of these killings, state-sponsored killings. I mean, how do you expect this to go? Because you talked about waiting for everything to unfold. What kind of cases could you file apart from the very specific individual cases?
So the way I see it, there are three categories of cases. No? The first category refers to the testimony of former Colonel Garma, in which there is, like as you mentioned, a systemic reward system for the killing of drug suspects and drug pushers. That's one. Another is the set of cases that we just talked about, those cold cases that the PNP has decided to reopen. These are specific cases. As to who or which exact cases, we have yet to find out. We are waiting for those for the endorsement. And the last one is the Barayuga case. The Barayuga case, the case buildup has actually already started. In fact, I was able to sit in one of the case buildup meetings, and together with us were agents from the PNP, the NBI, and the DOJ. So those three categories of cases are on different stages. Now, one is in Congress, the other is still yet to be reopened by the PNP, and the last one, the Barayuga case, is already with DOJ under case buildup.
Another case that has, I guess, potentially caught, or another cold case that has been talked about that authorities are planning to reopen is that of Tanawan Mayor, what's his
Antonio Halili.
Antonio Halili in 2018. I think this was mentioned by former Police Colonel Garma as well. Are you guys starting build up on that cold case?
We are only starting the case build up on the Barayuga case, and that was an instruction from the secretary to start on that case. But I would not be surprised if if the Quadcom came out with a partial report asking the DOJ to use that as basis for some of the other cases. But again, without some sort of basis like a partial report, then the DOJ will respect the processes currently being undergone by Congress.
I'm very, very curious with the case of Regina Garma, Police Colonel Regina Garma. And just taking a look at her testimony, it seems that she has totally absolved herself of any involvement na parang kumbaga, ni-refer lang niya to si Edelberto Leonardo sa dating presidente. But she has been pinpointed as one of the masterminds in the killing inside prison by Arturo Las Cañas, corroborated by other Quadcom testimonies. I mean, how eligible is she to become a state witness given her level in all of this, in the whole system?
Well, while Garma's testimony is quite significant, her potential role as a state witness remains to be seen. To be considered as a state witness, Garma must meet first the qualifications outlined under our current laws, particularly the Witness Protection, Security, and Benefit Act. This law outlines a strict criteria, no? And first and foremost, the person seeking to become a state witness must not appear to be the most guilty. In which case, as you correctly pointed out, she is trying to make it appear that she is not the most guilty. But second, the testimony of the potential witness also has to be absolutely necessary to the prosecution's case. In other words, if without Garma's account, it would be extremely difficult to establish the facts to be able to secure a conviction. So Garma's inside knowledge of the operations could prove to be critical in painting a comprehensive picture of how the reward system allegedly operated. And then the other qualification is that the testimony must be direct and materially materially contribute, no, to the resolution of the case. The last qualification is that it cannot be hearsay or vague in nature. So we must be able to sift through her statements first, whether in the hearings or like she read in the hearings, the form of an affidavit, to see which ones are actually legally hearsay or which ones would be admissible in court. So these are the qualifications. So her admission into the witness protection program is actually far from automatic. It will require a very thorough evaluation by the WPP to determine whether she can actually play this role of state witness.
I think the quads also mentioned that they need corroborative evidence to what she's, claiming. Some of them, at least. How does it complicate the picture for you guys now that Senator Bato de la Rosa wants his own parallel investigation into the war on drugs over in the Senate? I mean, will you be waiting for that too?
Well, of course, we have to afford the respect to a co-equal branch. No? At the end of the day, they were all elected by the general public. So we have to give that parliamentary respect to the office, no? The Senate and the Congress, which is why, well, for us, the Quadcom has done such a great job in getting to the bottom of a lot of these issues. The 4 committees coming together has proven to become, I would say, a holistic approach or method to really sift through the issues. No, if the Senate also wants to investigate the same issues, then of course they are by all means entitled to do that. And I don't think Senator Bato and Senator Bongo are the only senators. There are 24 of them, and they are all also, I'm sure, welcome to join the Senate hearing. So, we're not in a position to give opinions about how these committees are composed of or are structured. and how they go, but we will afford all the respect to our co-equal branch.
Yeah. Asik, I'm curious, before this series of Quadcom hearings, what was the state of the DOJ's investigation into the drug war? I understand you have been investigating it, but nothing specific has come out of it. How was it doing before the Quadcom hearings, and how do you expect the series of hearings, which I think you pretty much answered already, to move everything forward?
Well, there are two aspects to the investigation on the drug war. The first are the specific cases, which, as mentioned already by the secretary, there have been difficulties in getting witnesses. No, a lot of them are still very afraid for their lives, but we have ventured into a lot of dialogue with civil society organizations, and there is already a very big improvement in the comfort level of these CSOs to come forward. No? That's one, the specific cases. The second one is to look into the systematic way within which this drug war operated in. And the secretary had also already said that there was a quota system in the PNP. No? It is an unspoken, I guess, method or approach to the drug war where a lot of these police stations had quotas that they had to reach. And the secretary was not afraid to ask the PNP to immediately strike that down. In a lot of his initial pronouncements, as soon as he became the Secretary of Justice, when he faced the police, he was not afraid to actually tell them that, yes, he does know about this quota system and that it really does no good to society, because this is really where planting of evidence is done, all these useless killings, police abuses. This is really the root, this quota system, because just so that they could reach the quota and have that sort of metric of success, they are left desperate to find ways to reach it.
But we do have corroborating evidence in the court to join the hearing, the testimonies in the hearings about this reward system. Do we have corroborating evidence?
Well, actually, there have been talks about it, but this was the first time that I guess direct evidence or direct testimony was actually heard, which is why we do eagerly await the report of the Quadcom to be able to sift through the statements and to see whether there is corroborative evidence. But as I mentioned earlier, when we were discussing the qualifications of a state witness, one of the qualifications or one of the criteria is that the testimony must be absolutely necessary without corroborative evidence. Because if there was evidence that could stand alone, then the testimony of a state witness would no longer be necessary or absolutely necessary. So in a way, yes, you could have corroborative evidence to support the claims or the statements of former Colonel Garma, but not to the extent that it could replace her testimony.
Yeah. Asik Lawana, sorry, we're running out of time. Excuse me, there's a frog in my throat. But I do have a last question for you. We've got 30 seconds for it. 2 months ago, the DOJ ordered a thorough investigation into how Alice Guo escaped the country practically, well, illegally, but also without a trace. I wonder if you found out anything more since then.
Well, there has been a revelation from the Bureau of Immigration, which I think has already reached the media, where the passport bore the stamp of Kuala Lumpur on July 18 and the stamp of Sabah on July 19. Now, Kuala Lumpur is a landlocked area, which was her first destination as per her passport. So the DOJ is looking at the possibility that perhaps she had taken an airplane or a plane to Kuala Lumpur instead of a boat, which she claims to have gotten into.
Yeah.
No? And the Secretary of Justice has already mentioned that he does not believe the testimony of Alice Guo when she states that she took a boat from I think that was Zamboanga or Zambales all the way to Sabah. So this passport and the stamps on the passport sort of corroborate the Secretary's theory.
Specifically, though, are we any closer to holding accountable those who helped her escape? I mean, there's been suggestions that there would be high-ranking government officials who would have had a hand in this. Are we any closer to finding out who?
Well, the investigation is still ongoing. I don't think I'm at liberty yet to share the operational details of the investigation, but rest assured, the investigation is in full swing, and we hope to get to the bottom of it very, very soon.
And I hope you break it to us first. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate that. DOJ Assistant Secretary and Spokesman, Attorney Miko Clavano.
Well, up next, we'll be speaking with former Senator Antonio Trillanes about all the revelations from the Quadcom hearings, what's happening with the ICC, and why he wants to run for mayor of Caloocan City. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're watching the big story here in One News. The House has finalized its decision to slash some 1.3 billion pesos off the proposed budget of the Office of the Vice President for next year.
According to House Committee Appropriations Chairman Zaldico, the reallocated funds will be distributed to the DSWD and the DOH. Exactly half, or 646.5 million pesos, will be going to a DSWD program called AIX, or Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situations, while the other 50% will be going to a DOH program called Medical Assistance for Indigent and Financially Incapacitated Patients, or MAIFIP. The current OVP budget now stands at roughly 733 million pesos, and that amount is in line with what former President Leni Robredo used to get. In a statement, or former Vice President Leni Robredo rather, in a statement, Congressman Cos said this was a way to eliminate redundant roles under VP Duterte and that the House believes the money could be more effectively allocated to existing agencies. The 2025 national budget is now up for Senate deliberation, after which the two versions will be reconciled by the bicameral conference committee.
That is not going to go down well with the OVP, which, as it is accusing DSWD of politicizing its cash assistance program. Vice President Sara Duterte's team claims that DSWD has been turning down their requests for aid without clear explanation. Martin Enriquez with the big story.
There's a fight brewing between the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Social Welfare and Development. It started when DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian told the Senate Finance panel earlier this week that his department accommodated all referrals and requests for aid from the OVP. But in a statement issued October 15, signed by its Director for Operations Norman Balora, the OVP maintained that this was inaccurate and misleading. It says the DSWD turned down the referrals multiple times and without any clear explanation. One example the OVP said involved a referral from the OVP for individuals whose livelihoods were impacted by the African swine flu. The DSWD reportedly declined the request, citing their inability to conduct mass payouts. But they were able to carry out similar payouts in other regions with the involvement of other politicians. The OVP added that there was also no clear explanation provided by the DSWD to the OVP's referred clients from its satellite offices on the delay or inaction on the requests. Recall that Vice President Sara Duterte herself told senators during the OVP's budget hearing in August that there were several instances when the DSWD has politicized its cash assistance program. In the hearing on Monday, Senators Bongo and Amy Marcos grilled Gatchalian over it. He insisted the DSWD has always welcomed the OVP's referrals for assistance.
Hindi nagagamit ang DSWD sa kahit na anong politika.
Gatchalian also explained that referrals do not mean routine automatic payouts, as these still go through a verification process to check the identity of beneficiaries. And those who conduct the verification are registered social workers and not officials of the DSWD nor local politicians. Still, Gatchalian says the DSWD is talking to the OVP to clear the issue. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
One person who is not a stranger to being at war with the Vice President is former Senator Sonny Trillanes, who is here with us in the studio tonight to talk about a range of issues. He is also running for Mayor of Caloocan in the midterms. So welcome back to the big story, Sen.
Good evening, Gretchen, Shawn, and Ms. Regina.
Well, let's start off with the top story for tonight,
Okay.
which is Senators Bato de la Rosa and Senator Bongo wanting a parallel investigation in the Senate. What should we expect from that? Does it make sense? And why are they playing this card?
I think it's a desperate move to counter the effectiveness of the Quadcom hearings. But here's the thing. Both Senator Bato de la Rosa and Senator Bongo do not have the right to investigate an issue wherein both of them are principals. So that's a clear conflict of interest. So I think a better alternative to this would be the Committee of the Whole, wherein the Senate President would be the presiding officer. That way, that would remove any doubts about the partiality of the committee. So you cannot use a committee in order to try to protect yourself or to defend yourself.
They say they can likely get the former president to attend the hearing.
But again, all of these actions are basically an afterthought. They had the opportunity, the time to investigate these things if they're really interested into ferreting out the truth, but they didn't lift a finger. But now that the Quadcom hearings are closing in on them, and then here comes this proposal to investigate.
So would you be open, or would you want to hear them out in those hearings, just as long as the Senate President is a presiding officer?
I would totally do away with that because, again, the Quadcom hearings are already effective. You can only come in if you feel that the other house, the lower house in this case, is not effective or is going into a different direction that is detrimental to the interests of the country, the truth, and justice. But they're going into that direction. So what's the point?
The allegations haven't been proven, though. I mean, I know it's all these bombshell revelations, but let's remember that they've also not been proven. And I was wondering what was going through your mind when you heard Regina Garma giving her testimony, giving her affidavit. I mean, you've been looking into cases against the Dutertes as far back as 2017, right?
Let's just say that this is another spiritual epiphany, if you may call that, or an act of survival, or in my case, when I saw that, it's just how God's plan unfolded. And it's similar to my experience with the transformation of Mr. Las Cañas. Remember, when he first appeared in the Senate, he was a cold witness. It really reflected that he's really a cold-blooded killer. But then, after just 2 months, I met with him again, and he completely transformed.
You haven't met with Regina Garma?
No, not yet.
Not yet. That's a bit of a cliffhanger. Are you planning to meet with her? Is there a plan to meet her?
It's not necessary.
Okay. But do you know her?
I know her by reputation because we included her already in our communication with the ICC back in 2017. All of these things were revealed already by
Pero wala
Mr.
siya
Las
doon
Cañas.
sa parang 5 bibigyan ng warrants of arrest na policemen.
No. Sila kasi, the 5 were given, were elevated as suspects. But when we gave the communication back in 2017, both Leonardo and Garma were already there. Okay, and the whole Davao template to be elevated into the national operations, these are exactly the same words of Sergeant Las Cañas.
Okay,
So,
how does this
yeah.
change the ICC case? Earlier on our sister program, Storycon, they were able to talk to attorney Christina Conti, assistant to counsel Christina Conti. But in your opinion, how do you see this moving things forward? Or does it help the case in any way? Or does it open more avenues?
I think as far as the crimes against humanity case is concerned, the testimony of Colonel Garma completes the picture. So that will get them over any obstacle or any hindrance to the filing of a warrant. Now, the concern about whether this evidence would be needed to be transmitted to the ICC, remember the ICC investigators are not amateurs. They can get all this information. And so these things don't need to be officially handed out to them. So they can get the information that they need.
So would it delay the warrant? I think last we heard you mentioned around November, it's about to come out based on new evidence that has come to light or new testimonies. Would this further delay it or make it faster, exacerbate it?
I think it's going to be the same because the application is just the application. Then it's going to be the pretrial chamber who will decide whether to grant that application. And that will take probably a month and a half.
Sen, what happens if they don't issue an arrest warrant? Because we like to talk about, a lot of people are talking about the ICC like their big brother who's going to come and fix things. But if you look at what's happening in Israel, I mean, the prosecutor, the same prosecutor who's looking at the Duterte drug war, Karim Khan, filed a resolution to have an arrest order out for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in May. And to this day, the pretrial chamber has not acted on it, despite the widespread destruction of Gaza. So on the other side of it, what if the ICC never comes? What then?
Okay, here's the thing. The ICC is not the only legal option to make these people accountable. We also have domestic cases, and I heard Asek Labano talking about those things. And once, or whichever comes first, if the arrest warrant from the domestic cases would come out first, then that closes the door on the ICC because of the complementarity rule.
Do you have enough faith in this administration that they will see through the investigation to the end if something is proven true?
We can choose to be cynical about life.
Or we can be positive.
Yeah. I'm a fatalist. I believe when the time is come, whether it's through the ICC or the DOJ. And let me qualify that. The domestic cases would focus on murder cases, not the crimes against humanity case in general. And we already have a law for that, the Republic Act 9851, which defined the crimes against humanity. But we'll have to wait for the DOJ, and it's going to be a very long process. I think the ICC already had a head start in that regard. So it's just a matter of weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, we will have more questions for you, specifically with the intelligence funds as well as your candidacy, but we'll be pausing for a quick break. We'll continue our discussion with former Senator Sonny Trillanes when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're watching The Big Story here on One News. Still with us, we have former Senator and Caloocan mayoralty candidate, former Senator Antonio Sonny Trillanes.
Well, Senator, The period under investigation in the ICC is from November 1, 2011 to March 16, 2019. And right smack in the middle of that is the mayoralty of Vice President Sara Duterte. And actually, put to light now is her use of intelligence funds back in 2022. Pati yung 2010 to 2013, very, very curious to know, I mean, is her name being brought up in all of this?
Yes, she was already mentioned by Arturo Las Cañas. When they, well, remember, these are the original Davao Death Squad. They started back in 1988. They started killing people. Then, nung nagpalit si Duterte, the father, and si Sara, noong 2010, humingi sila ng, sabi ni Digong, magpaalam kayo kay Sara kung pwede pa ituloy. So nagpaalam sila kay Sara kung pwede pa ituloy yung EJ case or salvaging nung panahon na ang term. Sinabi niya, sige, gawin nyo, pero wag nyo patayin dun sa mga kalye, dukutin nyo, patayin nyo dun sa salvage area.
To be clear, who is niya? Sinabi ni na po.
Sinabi ni Sara Duterte. So nagpaalam sila. So that's on the affidavit of Las Cañas. Nung nag-testify si Las Cañas sa ICC, sinabi niya yon. Kaya it's on the record. Ngayon, well, I'd be honest, in the sense na, we still need corroborative evidence for that. Kaya I'm quite pessimistic na mahahabol si Sara Duterte sa ICC role. But in light of the testimony of Regina Garma, I'm quite confident baka pati si Bongo and Bato masasama.
Ano yung sense ninyo dun sa, ngayon kasi yung topic is, nagamit ba itong mga confidential or intelligence funds, pang fund ng mga rewards sa drug war? Ano yung sense nyo doon? Mapoprove ba yun? Kasi nga, by their very nature, hindi sila masyadong ino-audit. All they can say is, nagastos ng ganitong ilang araw, di ba?
Okay. Doon sa na-investigate namin, when they were in Davao, nagamit yon. Kasi si Matobato, meron siyang actual na mga payslip na doon kinukuha sa confidential funds yung allowance niya. And ang role niya is to kill people. Ganon din si Las Cañas, they get extra allowances through the confidential funds ng Davao City Mayor. And yung kay Sara, itong last 3 years niya, 2.7 billion yun ang total. Then, before that, yung kay Duterte, the father, 700 million a year yun. So, they've been using that as part nung reward system na ginagawa.
Very curious about the personality of Mary Ann Maslog, yung isang resource person na ikinagalit ni Senator Bato de la Rosa, na sinasabi niya ipinadala daw ng administrasyon to get Alice Go to pin Senator Bato, Senator Bongo, and former President with the Pogos, implicating them. I mean, what would you have to say to that? Kasi para sa akin siya yung medyo nagsistick out from all the other resource persons. She has a different
Have you heard of her before?
Yeah.
I mean, may kaso na kasi siya before, and she also has 2 identities.
Ganito, yung sinasabi ni Bato na si Maslog will implicate them, sa kanya lang nanggaling yon. And I think that's a misdirection. But I also agree, itong highly suspicious din yung role ni Maslog in all of these things. I believe nagkaroon lang ito ng access sa whereabouts ni Alice Guo, and she decided to sell that information.
Okay.
Yun lang aking view.
Let's come back to you.
Yeah.
Special mention ka po by VP Sara. A few weeks ago, she held a press conference wherein she said that you, Senator Risa Ontiveros, and Congresswoman Franz Castro have one handler, that there's one person is orchestrating all these attacks against her, and that there's been an impeachment plan daw since last year. What's your reaction to that?
Alam nyo, sinabi niya, she has a video. Sabi ko nga, labas mo. Here's the problem with the media, na hindi nyo sinisingil. Ma'am, asan na yung sinabi mo? Di ba? She promised to, I will show you the evidence. That's a lie. Misdirection yan. She's always doing that. Magsasabi siya ng parang totoo, may ite-threaten siya. But she always comes up short. She never follows through. Wala yun. It's para lang sa kanilang mga influencers.
So, Sen, I need a definitive answer. Do you have a handler or not?
None. I never had one. Kilala naman yung track record namin. Pagka meron kami pinursue na investigation, we see it through until the end, di ba? And kahit wala na ako sa posisyon, I'm still pursuing that. And ngayon, I'm running after her, no? Ngayon yung impeachment, palagay ko, those politically aware na mga Pilipino, alam that na unfit siya to hold public office. Not only the vice presidency, but any public office. I think may problema ito psychologically. But more than that, nakita natin, may history of corruption and abuse of power. Grabe yun.
But impeachment is a very high bar to cross, to reach. The grounds that you said last time we spoke to you, you've documented 25 articles of impeachment.
Yes.
All of them are hard to prove. Graft is hard to prove. Abuse of public trust is hard to prove. How confident are you that this will result in something tangible?
Okay. Remember that the impeachment is an exemption to the bank secrecy law. Kagaya nung when we conducted an impeachment trial against former Chief Justice Corona, hindi talaga makita yon, no? Pero because of the impeachment, we were able to get the bank executives. Lumabas talaga yon. In the case of Sara Duterte, nakita na namin yon. And it was already confirmed by the ombudsman then that the AMLAC confirmed that the documents I had were the same as the ones with AMLAC. And ando doon, yung bank transactions ni Duterte, the mistake that he made was joint account sila ni Sara. So that's one. Mabilis ma-prove yun kasi pag sinomon mo yung bank executives, ilalabas yung transaction history, wala na yun. Then meron siyang in-encash na manager's checks against a known drug lord associate of Michael Yang. Dalawa yon when she was mayor. So people will argue that hindi naman yan covered nung vice presidency niya. Well, yes, technically, but it establishes a pattern of behavior, a history of corruption, bribery ito.
How did you get a hold of that information, the checks?
Ando doon sa documents that I got noong 2016.
Okay.
And final ko yun sa ombudsman. Ando doon, specific, in-encash ang manager's check under her name. Kaya
Specifically for the encash checks, what are you trying to say? What does that prove? It doesn't prove graft eh.
But it proves bribery. She was mayor, we have the SALENS, hindi niya dineclare yun.
Okay.
Tapos, galing sa known drug lord associate.
Okay.
So that's a problem.
But Sen,
Yan.
when we talk about impeachment, no, importante yung numbers, right?
Yes.
We saw it nung time nung in-impeach si Chief Justice Corona. Right now, you decided to run for mayor, sarado na yung filing, di na natin mababawi. You can't go for the Senate, where I think pursuing this would be easier, no? Are there numbers? Is there some sort of campaign going around? Kasi so far, the lawmakers that we have been speaking to, they've been saying wala naman daw.
Again, drawing from my experience dun sa Corona impeachment, we started at 10. 10 kami, 13 yung acquittal. Kasi depende yun sa bar. No? Kami alam namin na guilty, na hindi na talaga fit to hold the position as Chief Justice. Pero yung iba, they're still waiting for the public opinion kasi quasi legal ito. So ngayon, pag lumabas lahat yan at lumabas yung public opinion, I think the senators will follow. Pagka in the court of public opinion, sinabi na guilty si Sara Duterte, then they will be forced to convict as well.
Sorry, Sen, we've got 5 minutes left on the clock. We need to talk about your mayoralty candidacy. I know you've said the first thing you'll do is stamp out corruption, and that's your biggest advocacy. There's a plan there, but what exactly is the plan? I mean, every politician says that, right? They're running to help the poor, to stamp out corruption. But what specifically is the plan?
Okay, the plan is by not taking commissions, you will lower the cost of everything, goods and services na pinoprocure. Yun ang nangyayari sa Caloocan. Ang focus nila is, kunyari, infrastructure because that's where the commission is. So, yun ngayon, imbis na nire-realign sa social programs that would benefit the citizens of Caloocan, mahirap kumita doon. So, doon nila dinadala. So, yun, ganun lang kasimple.
To be blunt about it, are you saying that the incumbent has been taking commissions? The incumbent mayor?
Definitely. No, may mga kaso sila, yung pamilya nila ng corruption. And alam na yan, it's an open secret sa City Hall. It's an open secret sa City Hall. No? Kaya nga, biruin nyo, ang laki nung ira ng Caloocan, and yet, walang benepisyo sa mga taga-Caloocan. So, yung mga taga-Caloocan, they know this. No? Kaya hindi pwedeng madaan sa propaganda to.
And yet, they've been in power. They've been incumbents for many years. What kind of work would you have to do to get the numbers?
I think may best practices na, may template na. What happened to, let's say, Pasig with Vico Soto in just one term, he turned things around. Mayor Isko Moreno, he also turned things around in one term. So you can do that simply by not pocketing the money of City Hall.
May slogan din po ba kayo? Si Benro Abalos, kalaban.
Very small.
Kayo preposition. Kayo may ganun ba?
Pag-iisipan na natin in the coming days.
Don't forget the preposition,
Yeah.
Pero ito, no, if it's that simple, no, ay marami namang magagandang loob, like you said, Mayor Vico of Pasig. Ano yung challenge no, sa actual na pagpapatupad nung talagang malinis lang na pamamalakad? Kasi marami ring mababangka dyan.
Pero yung experience ko, it's just saying no. That's the difficult part. But since I became a senator, I've been saying no. Kaya ngayon mga kalabang ko, wala sila mahanap sa akin na
Pero Senator, alam natin, ang local, ibang laban yan eh. Kailangan meron kang mga kaalyado sa barangay level. And madalas, pag malinis ka, hindi sila aalyado sa'yo. I mean, how do you plan to bridge that gap?
Okay. I've been doing my rounds. I've been campaigning directly to the people. Meron kami mga leaders on the ground. And sabi ko nga, we've been tracking the numbers. Hindi naman kami, times 5 na yung in-increase namin since 6 months ago. So I think we're doing the right thing and we're on the right path. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to the months to come, see more of you, and of course, more developments over in the ICC.
Yeah, but also the taxes, right? You said you were going to cut taxes. Pero yun nga, it's a bit. I'm not sold on it because I know if you cut taxes, that means less revenue to run City Hall. But, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, but the tax compliance, tinaas nila pero yung tax collection bumaba. Dinidiscourage yung mga tao from paying taxes because exorbitant. Now, why did they increase the taxes? Because collateral yon for the loans.
I was looking at the numbers. Actually, Caloocan last year was middle of the pack when it comes to NCR 17 LGUs in terms of revenue intake. So, nasa middle, hindi naman nasa bottom.
But it's supposed to be at the top.
Because of its size.
Yes, because of its size.
How big is the debt of Caloocan City right now? Would you know?
At around 7 billion.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's living on loans. Yeah.
Kung may ipagmamalaki po ang Caloocan, isang bagay, ano po yun? And what is your vision for the city?
Sa ngayon, ang pinakang historical roots ng Caloocan, ito yung pinag-ugatan ng Katipunan. So, yun ang pwedeng gawing angkla ng bagong Caloocan that we wish to create.
Yun yung slogan. No, ang bagong Caloocan.
Bagong Caloocan.
Hindi ba yun din ang slogan ng
other cities?
He can say that because he's been there for 12 years. Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for your time and for all the updates. We always look forward to having you around But in the meantime,
we have run out of time for real. So that's it for the big story on this midweek Wednesday night.
we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.